And thank you for letting me be on 10 Minutes With.
Well, we've enjoyed it. We've had a good time. Of course, a lot of this has been spurred on from your radio show, Live by the Word. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Right. We were trying to kind of brainstorm several years ago about some ways to get the word out about Mid-America. And I do a lot of preaching on weekends anyway, typically different churches Sunday to Sunday. And so several people came up with the idea, well, maybe we could capture some of that and not only promote the seminary, but also kind of promote this idea of exposition, biblical teaching and preaching, and really promoting, that, hey, you need to live according to the Bible. So it's not enough just to say, yeah, I believe the Bible, but you need to actually practice what the Bible says. So that's kind of where it came out, and so we had some help from Adrian Rogers' ministry, Love Worth Finding, and some other interested people just to kind of get it started. We did that for a year, eventually bringing it more into the seminary just to kind of make it's a little more convenient for me, to be honest with you, just as far as recording and things like that. But it's been a lot of fun and really kind of a learning experience for all of us.
Yeah, I'll agree. Well, let's kind of shift gears just a little bit. Let's talk about the seminary a little bit more. Let's talk about some of the things. You've been here for 20 years, over 20 years.
Scary, isn't it?
Well, no comment. But, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen at Mid-America?
Well, and some of them are Mid-America changes, and some of them are changes just maybe in theological education, and some are changes in church life. As far as the seminary goes, Mid-America has always had such a great reputation with its constituency. In other words, very trustworthy place.
Right.
And so that was one thing that you didn't want to change. But we also recognize that a lot of things as far as technology and how to deliver ministry training, that's changed. Probably on the technological side, that's been one of the biggest things that we've seen, and it's not just in-classroom technology, but getting the word out about the seminary. There are a lot more tools available today, and so we've tried to take advantage of some of those, and so that's been a big change. As far as theological education, distance learning is huge. I mean, the idea that you have to actually move to a place, go to seminary, it used to be that's how you got trained. You don't have to do it that way anymore.
Right.
Now here, we still kind of debate the idea because that mentoring approach seems to turn out the best church leaders and pastors and missionaries. So we don't want to lose all that. You can deliver the information, but can you deliver the training? So we're trying to keep a balance there. So that's been a big change. Church culture has changed. American church culture, the Southern Baptist Convention church culture has changed. And it's not a bad change, but it is different today. When you think about the typical Mid-America student from 20 years ago, they probably came from a small church. They knew their pastor pretty well. If they were called to preach, so to speak, they probably had some opportunities to preach. If they were called to student ministry, they had some opportunities to teach or lead. Today, more students have come right out of college. They might have come from a bigger church or come to Christ in a kind of a parachurch ministry, and they may not have had many local church opportunities to serve at all. May not even have known their pastor real well. Might have known their student pastor far better than the senior pastor. So it's a different change, and like I said, not bad, but it's different.
Well, what kind of challenges does that present, with this different student body?
Yeah, to me the big challenge, and this is one I don't have all figured out, but it's kind of your first church challenge. So if you graduate from seminary and your first church is a small church in a rural area, you may have very little understanding of the culture of that church. Now, if you go to a larger church or multi-staff church, it may not be that big a deal. And long term, you'll probably be in a church more like what you're used to, unless God calls you to cross-cultural settings. So that's one of the challenges. You can train somewhat for a church, but a person might serve in their ministry in several different ministry types and settings. So you can't train everybody for everything. So that's where you just boil it back down to what are core personal principles that you can teach somebody. What can you do to fill them up with the Word, and then give them this learner's heart where they know how to find the answers that they need wherever they are.
When we're looking at curriculum and what we're teaching students, has it changed much over the last few years?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brad. Yes and no. In some ways, some of the classes have stayed fairly constant, some of the theology classes, and that's one thing that seminaries are supposed to do is kind of provide salt and light theologically among the group of ministers, and then they pass it on to the people in the pew. And so that hasn't changed a lot. There may be the way we talk about it. There may be some issues that are more burning issues today than they were 20 years ago. But that hasn't changed as much. Now, some of the things have changed because dealing with people and understanding people. Also, as America becomes more multicultural, we have to recognize that. And in your minister, now no longer do you have to be a foreign missionary to deal
Right.
with somebody in another culture. It could be right in your own backyard.
To bring up another topic, I've noticed that the student body is more multicultural, more interracial. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I think that the more time you deal with somebody from another country or whatever, you kind of get their perspective on things, then you really begin to understand, how to walk in their shoes a little bit. So I think that's been a pretty cool thing. It's been a lot of fun for me, and I like to travel internationally anyway. So I think it's good to kind of bring that to Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think it's great for the student body as well. Well, we did talk about some of the changes you've seen in theological education. What do you think the next step is with instant learning? Do you think we're going to continue that direction? Do you think it's going to change?
That's a great question, and that's in the kind of I don't know. In one part of me, kind of thinks there may be a rebound. There may be kind of a bounce back or a pendulum swing the other way to get back to a mentoring approach. I know that some have tried that. There's a new seminary that started in the Upper Midwest, very popular pastor, and he's trying to keep a small group that he'll stay with for 3 years, and he'll meet once a week with them. It's a mentoring approach,
Right.
And I've heard there's a lot of buzz about that. Well, that's really kind of old school in a sense, and so that may be that Mid-America, we can kind of catch that wave again. So I'm not sure. I don't know that we'll continue to use all technology to deliver. It may be that a personal touch is always going to be needed.
Right. On a different spectrum here, or a little bit different direction, the church relationship with Mid-America, has that changed, or are we still looking the same?
Yeah, that's been the same, actually, maybe even better than ever. We, in a sense, are a servant of local churches. We provide them with trained ministers, and the churches have been a prayer funding support, a financial funding support. I mean, they've just done so much to help us out, and the relationship with churches is essential to keep Mid-America going.
And do the churches, I know churches often are the ones that hook up individual donors. And I know that donors, when you look at a school like Mid-America, how important are donors or financial supporters?
Yeah, our school is not a tuition-driven school financially. It's donor-driven. So if you think about our budget, 3 of the $5 that make up our whole budget, 3 out of 5, 60% come from donations from individuals and churches. 1 of the 5 would come from tuition. 1 of the 5 would come from what we probably would just call endowment income. So it's really essential. And so those churches and individuals allow students to get trained and hopefully to have very low debt, if or none at all, when they graduate from seminary.
Right. Now, the school is known as a Southern Baptist school. Can you want to explain that a little bit more, kind of our relationship with the convention?
Absolutely. Yeah, Mid-America is Southern Baptist by conviction and calling. So in other words, we have chosen to be Southern Baptist. That's the only focus we have. But technically, we're not owned by the denomination. So our board of trustees are not appointed by the convention. So in some ways, that gives us some freedom. In other ways, it still allows us to serve Southern Baptist. And so to me, it's been a good thing. And most of the Southern Baptist agencies, we have a regular connection or working relationship with, whether it's the International Mission Board, North American Mission Board, and they've been great friends to us.
Yeah. Now, what about students that may not be Southern Baptist? Is that a possibility? Or?
Absolutely, and we always have a core segment of students that are not Southern Baptist. One thing that's distinctive about us is it's the same price for everybody. At a Southern Baptist-owned seminary, you pay double if you're not
Right.
Southern Baptist. So we've been able just to say, hey, if God's called you to come to Mid-America, we have the same support for you that we'd have for everybody else.
Any closing things you want to say?
I just want to say that I'm as excited to be president of the seminary today as I was in '97 when I started. Hard to believe it's been that long, but it's just a neat place to watch God's hand at work.
That's great. Well, we want to thank you today for being with us, Dr. Spradlin, and I want to thank you for joining us today on 10 Minutes With. We are in the Live by the Word studios on the Mid-America campus, Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary. Our websites are livebytheword.org and mabts.edu. And as we go today, my prayer for you is that the Lord will bless you and that you will praise His name.